A good example of this is file input. Whenever we load some data from a file, we want to enclose the attempt to load the file inside a try block, because file input very commonly raises errors. Some languages even require that file input happen inside a try block. So here, we have all the code corresponding to file input inside one try block. Don't worry too much about what this code does right now, we'll cover it in Unit 4. For now, all you need to know is that this code opens a file and then prints every line of text that was found inside that file. And then at the end, it closes the file again. Here we see the output if the file was empty. Here, we're trying to catch an I/O error, an input-output error, if that error arises inside this try block. However, the only place an I/O error can happen is when we actually read from the file. Here on line 3, we say to open the file. That's the only place an I/O error can happen. So really, this is the only line where we need to catch an I/O error. It can't arise anywhere else. So while the code we have right now is fine, it would be great to narrow this try block down to only the lines of code that could actually generate the error that we expect. So here's some code that does the exact same thing. We still have our try block, and it still catches an I/O error if an input error occurs. However, the only place an input error can occur is when we call this open function. And so that open function, or the line that calls that open function, is the only line that needs to be inside this try block. However, we can only run this code down here, the code that used to be in the remainder of the try block, if this line actually worked. If we weren't able to open the file, then we can't actually iterate through the file and print every single line. So we only want to run this code in the else block if there was no error encountered inside the try block. And that's exactly what this code does. It starts from the beginning, tries the try block, and here encounters no error. So it skips the except block. Because no error was encountered, it does run the else block, and that causes it to actually read from the file and close it at the end. And again, here the file was empty, so we don't see anything, but if the file had anything in it, we would see the output here. So this code does the exact same thing, but it's a little bit better organized because the only thing inside the try block is the code that can actually generate an error. If we try to run this code with a file name of a file that doesn't actually exist, which you might infer from fakeinputfile.txt, then we get the same error. The code ran to line 3, tried to open fakeinputfile.txt, and hit an error. That error was caught by this except block, causing it to run line 6, printing that an input error had occurred. Because the except block triggered, the else block is skipped, which is a good thing, because otherwise the computer would be trying to read from a file that it already realized doesn't exist.